Sing me a song of a lass that is gone, sacred that lass be I. Welcome to the Outlander Tour. Hey everyone, it's Leah Lindemann, author of the Canadian Reminiscence series. Welcome to Pen to Paper. I know I've been gone for a little while, but that's because I've been globetrotting. I've been to Scotland, maybe even Rome, and it was a glorious trip overall. I'm just so excited to share all that I have to share with you. I've put together a little slideshow with some pictures, with some videos about my trip to Outlander, Scotland. Okay, Outlander is not really a place in Scotland. It's a TV show. The reason why my mom and I went to Scotland was because she's a crazy fan of the show. And so I decided for her 50th birthday to treat her to Scotland. So you're going to see a bunch of Outlander areas where they film the show, but also just the beautiful Scotland, picturesque mountains, lowlands, highlands, a little bit of Isle of Skye. And I'm just incredibly excited to show you all. I'm glad to be back. So today is not a teaching moment, and I know I promised last episode that I was going to do some teaching on self-publishing, but that will start up next week. And this Friday, I will put out a single review for The Coward, which I meant to do a while ago, but also that didn't happen. So enjoy the slideshow, and throughout the slideshow, I'll be sprinkling some historical notes here and there for you to enjoy. See you next Friday. Behold Scotland's national flower, the thistle. We saw it almost everywhere we went. And Arthur's Seat is an extinct volcano on the edge of Edinburgh, and it is the mythical origins of Excalibur. It's about an hour climb. We did it on our first day in Scotland. Something, I guess, that was reaching, challenging to do. It's quite steep at the end, but well worth the view at the top. And here's Blackness railway station. This was our first stop in Scotland. It was an original steam train that we rode on, and we had afternoon tea. Here you can see Thomas the Little Blue engine. It was as if we were transported back to the 1930s. This is actually in Outlander where Claire says goodbye to Frank in that steam train scene in season 1. We had a whole compartment to ourselves, which was really special, private, serene. Everything was taken care of in great detail. The conductors, the caterer were all so helpful and welcoming. Now, the Sir Walter Scott National Monument is the tallest monument that has been built in an author's honor. This is St. Margaret's Chapel. When Robert the Bruce completely destroyed and burned the entire Edinburgh Castle, he kept St. Margaret's Chapel as is. And that is where the crown jewels were stored during World War II. I even came upon a writer's museum on the Royal Mile, and John Knox's house, the Protestant reformer. This is the outside of the Palace of Holyrood. the throne room where the late Queen Elizabeth II would entertain her dignitaries. And these were the royal thrones. And a portrait of Mary, Queen of Scots. This is an old ruined abbey. Unfortunately, we couldn't go in. There was some falling debris that kept tourists out. The World's End pub has the best fish and chips ever. And this was our first whiskey. Blackness Castle was probably one of my favorite castles. We visited about 7 castles in total. It just has such a medieval, rustic, dark character to it. It's actually built in the shape of a ship. A ship that cannot go on sea. We were actually able to go in that tower. And that drawbridge is the last of its kind in the UK. And a beautiful latrine to look at. Now look at those stairs. Wouldn't you want stairs like that? Yes, please. Alright, what you see before you is Blackness Castle. A castle built in the 1500s. This floor was used to house prisoners that had fallen out of favor with the king. This is actually pretty good accommodations. It was comfortable, like they were living at home. Look at that ginormous fireplace. They could roam out of the castle 3 miles away and return by evening curfew to come back to their home. And actually, this is not where the prisoners would have stayed. That's still the 3rd floor. This is where their families would have stayed with their own servants. They could bring their own silver, their own books. So it really was home away from home. And also, out of all the castles, this was my favorite Great Hall. This was a nice surprise. After the castle tour, we came out and this gentleman was playing the bagpipes. This is Dune Castle. It had such a familial, jolly feeling to it, very warm and inviting. This is actually the set for Castle Leach in Outlander, where Jaime's clansmen stay and where kind of the family home is. This is Dune Castle's Great Hall. And this little area was the family worship corner. And those stairs. Ugh. This would have been where the Duke would have met with his dignitaries for business. And this is where the prisoners would have been dropped down into. The landscape always blew my mind. It was so dramatic constantly. I fell in love while I was in Scotland. I fell in love with Scotland. The Kelpies, a mythical creature from Scotland who lures children away from their homes and into their watery depths. All right, you ready to see it? This coming up is Rome. You see, I told you, we went to Rome while we were in Scotland. It's actually the National Scotland Monument. We also came upon this gem, the Conan Doyle, after Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. The interior was exuberant, so particular to the Sherlock Holmes era. It was such a pleasure to be in. This is Hopetoun House. It is not a palace. It looks like a palace, and I definitely wish I could live there. And I believe the Earl and his family still lives there to this day, although they only keep to a certain wing of the house, and the rest is open to tourists. This library has 3,000 books. Now that is book goals for any booktuber, book lover. This is a one-way door. There were actually quite a few of them in Hopetoun House. Everything is perfection. The ceiling, the plastering, the lamps, the beds. This is why I want to live there. But it was good enough to visit. We even got to go up to the Hoople, which gives you a breathtaking view of the grounds surrounding it. And my mom and I even raided the butler's pantry, stole the wigs for a picture. This ballroom was actually off limits at the time because there was a wedding while we were there, and the ballroom was the reception venue. But the window was open a little bit, so I kind of leaned in and took a pic. And this was actually where the wedding was held. Driving on the left side of the road was challenging to say the least, specifically the first day. I was just thrown into city driving. No easy country driving for me. This is the land surrounding Culross, which was my favorite town, my favorite village while I was in Scotland. And really, the only place where you could get a proper Scottish tam, which is the hat I was wearing at the beginning of this video. It was quaint perfection. This is Culross Castle. Culross Abbey, which had some weird vibes when I went in. I don't know, there's just a strange feeling, a vacuum, a dampening on my ears. It's very strange. I mean, face it, there are 7 dead bodies buried here. This man is one of them. They even had a sarcophagus, which you see before you, with an actual body inside, centuries old. Behind it, there was this beautiful laneway where we gathered blackberries, and the smallest blackberries were the sweetest ones. The Golden Lion, which is the hotel we stayed at, was where actually Robert Burns stayed at while he was in Scotland, or I should say Stirling, Scotland. And this is the view from Stirling Castle. It seemed to be higher up than the castle that Edinburgh is sitting on. This was from a cannon, which we weren't allowed to touch because the moisture could ruin it over time. Now, unfortunately, Stirling Castle was destroyed when it changed hands so many times between the Scottish and the English that all this color that you see is just a mock-up of what it would have looked like in its glory days. They actually had to rebuild this, the Great Hall, because it was used as an ammunitions depot and a place for the military to stay in, and it just got abused over time, so they really had to reconstruct it. The Highland Folk Museum was a real gem going up to Inverness. Don't I just look like a hobbit? Chickens! Now this is the clavicairns. This is the ring of standing stones that where Clare passes through time. It was based on this particular spot. This is Bronze Age. It's a Bronze Age, what's the word I'm looking for? Place where people of the past would have buried their dead here within the stones. There were 4 of these in the area. My mom just trying to play a practical joke, pretending to be the dead coming back to life. Here's the standing stone. Oh, smoked salmon, scrambled eggs. It was one of the best breakfasts we had. And this is the harbor where we took our Loch Ness cruise. And no, unfortunately, I did not see Nessie, although it was something I really wanted to see. This is Culross Castle. So we were on the boat for about 50 minutes. We had Culross Castle for an hour and a half, and then we went back on the boat to the harbor. Now, Euchre Castle is actually the largest medieval fortress in Scotland. It changed hands again so many times between the English and the Scottish. It's mostly ruined today. This was a whiskey tasting tour at the Singleton Malt Distillery. We learned so much about how whiskey is made and how you get the different aromas and tastes in the whiskey. That particular video right there is where they put the grains in for about 6 hours and mix them with water. And then they go into these barrels where they're mixed with water and other, I guess, the other variety of flavors that they put in with whiskey for another, I think it was about 16 hours. I could be wrong, so don't quote me. If you ever see these types of roofs, you know that it is a distillery. And you see that kind of black fungus on the building that you just saw. That is from the sugar that evaporates from the barrels. This was Rogie Falls. Now, I don't have a video of salmon jumping upstream, but this was the stream where they did, and it was incredible to see. It was the first time I've ever seen anything like it. Are you ready to meet Jamie Mackenzie Fraser from Outlander? Well, here he is! Jamie Mackenzie Fraser, literally, the Highland moo cow was named after him. And this was the store, one of my favorite places in the entire world. Now, when we arrived, I thought we were just going to park and, walk 10 minutes to the big rock that everyone talks about. But no, this turned out to be an hour and a half hike, which we were not prepared for time-wise, but we pushed onward. Look at that. To me, it seemed as if they were the ruins of a castle that giants had built. It was incredible. I have no words to describe it. I desperately wish I could go back. Eilean Donan Castle was the most beautiful castle out of the 7 that we visited. Such a character on the outside. Now, these were a set of stairs I wasn't allowed to go down, but I went under the rope and did it anyways. Supposedly they weren't very safe, but they seemed fine to me. These were so good. They came out of a food truck. My mom and I fell in love with these cows. They just had so much character. Like this. This was a little garden that they made in Fort William to commemorate all the frontline workers during COVID. It had some beautiful flowers here. This was our last morning in Inverness, and we stayed at the Ballyferry guest house where Fraser, the gentleman who took care of us, he was so great. He was a local who just told us all these hidden gems that we should go see, and I'm very grateful to him. This was actually something on my bucket list. I wanted to have a local tell me where were the best places to go and to just really get that feel of the culture. This man has been at Loch Ness for 21 years searching for Nessie. I believe he's broken the world record. And this is Foyer Falls, where Robert Burns also went. Now, when Robert Burns was there back in the 1800s, it was quite a bit bigger and had more volume, but now it is used to actually help produce electricity for the villages surrounding it. And this deer was so cute. It followed us, it let us touch it, and oh, it was beautiful. Yes, we had our feet in very cold water, but we had to do it.
So this is the Glen Viaduct.
My mom forgot to say the Glenfinnan Viaduct. The train, well known as the Harry Potter train. We didn't go on the train, we just stayed on the outside admiring the structure. Another incredible place. We drove the highway cut through Glencoe, which is definitely a must-see when you go to Scotland. We were listening to Outlander music while we were driving. While we were there was a place right off the highway where you could stop your car and take pictures or go hiking. There were quite a few hikers who were climbing down across from where I'm hiking here, but I thought, well, this would be neat to climb this, basically looked like an avalanche of rocks, and I was trying to get to those little fairy falls right up there. Didn't take me too long, probably about 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Now this was a rock that I picked from my mom. It's in the shape of a heart. Amazing that I found it amongst all the other ones. And another bucket list item of mine was finding Scottish red deer with horns. They were incredible. This was at the end of the Glen Etive road. Hey everybody, I really wanted to do this live, but I couldn't because I'm in a place where there's no internet connection. Yet, I just had to show you this view. It's incredible. This is going to be for Instagram, but I might put this up on my vlog for my YouTube channel too. So, I am here in Glen Etive, and this is where they filmed the James Bond Skyfall. It's incredible. There's a beautiful waterfall. It was so funny. We did the right turn to get into Glen Etive, and it's a single track lane with a bunch of passing places. So if someone's coming in the opposite direction, you can pull over to the side and let them through. And yet it seemed to be going on forever and ever and ever and ever, and it feels like you're never gonna get out of this place. But here at the end, there's a beautiful waterfall. It's incredible. So I'm going to show you a video of that now.
This is Glen Etive, everybody, where they filmed James Bond Skyfall. So funny, we were passing somebody on the passing place and we're like, where is this place? It seems to be going on forever and ever and ever. And he's like, oh, you just have to find people where they're taking all the pictures. Ridiculous. But I mean, look at the grandeur. And you just so in awe, you feel so small, these majestic places. Ooh, there's a lot of black bugs, and these bugs bite. We'll bring you closer to the falls.
So I thought this was the end of the road, but turned out there was like another half hour to drive to get to the real end of the road. We probably got up to 10 minutes before the end, maybe 5 minutes. It took a while because it was a single track lane and lots of twists and turns with a sheer edge to fall off of. Now we actually had to come back through Glencoe Falls, or Glencoe, to go down to Glasgow, and these are the falls. And Another bucket list item of mine was swimming in a loch, which is basically the Scottish term for a lake. So this one is Loch Lomond. We went to the small little village of Luss, and there's a beach, and I swam in 16 degrees Celsius cold water. It's funny, I wanted to touch the buoy, and there's this boat that comes out of nowhere, and this guy says, "Hey," and I said, "Hey," and then he says, "You know, it's only 16 degrees in there," and I said, "Yeah, I know, it's okay." And I swam in it. It actually really wasn't too bad. I was expecting it to be a lot colder. Glasgow Cathedral in Glasgow. This was our last castle, Mid-Hope Castle. This is Jamie Fraser's home in Scotland, and my mom was so obsessed with this place. She was so excited to come here.